Hello lovely people, my name is Emma and today we are talking my TBR for December. So I have 3 books on the go currently at the moment as we're at the end of November drifting into December. So I'll talk about them then first and then my kind of reading plans in general. I am still wading through the Three Musketeers by Alexander Dumas. I took a huge break off from it in November because I really didn't have the headspace to dedicate to a classic. But I jumped back in with the audiobook literally this morning and was reminded again of how much fun I was having with it. So I will try and finish it off before the end of the year. I think I've got about 50% left to go, but generally it's good fun. And hopefully you know what the Three Musketeers is. It's kind of an iconic classic, shall we say, from French literature. I'm also about halfway through A Forger's Tale by Shaun Greenhalgh. This is Confessions of the Bolton Forger, and it's a guy who made a living forging a variety of different very famous artworks and very famous kind of artists. He does actually get caught and ends up serving 4 years in prison, and it's his memoir talking about how he got into the forging world, why he did it, his different techniques, and then what it was like to be in prison. Generally I'm enjoying it. You can tell he's not a writer, he is somebody who is writing a book about their life, and I do think a good ghostwriter would have helped out here, but his real passion and enthusiasm for the techniques and the craft of art is really fantastic. Plus he is so knowledgeable about art history, it's really fun. Literally last night I started Queer Intentions, a personal journey through the LGBTQ+ culture by Amelia Abraham. Amelia Abraham is a journalist, and this is kind of a collection of conversations about queer culture, the queer community, and what it means to be a member of it, as well as kind of partial memoirs of her experiences. So the first chapter I read was looking at marriage and the importance of being able to marry and kind of having that legitimization of your relationship, and whether that is something that people in the queer community genuinely want or not, and the different kind of opinions there. I'm really enjoying it so far. I think her journalistic writing style is coming through and it makes it very easy and very kind of personable and quite a quick read. So I'm really excited to see what other stuff she ends up talking about. So that's currently what I have on the go. Let's talk about some books that I'm going to hopefully try and get to. I have more or less abandoned a lot of my big yearly TBRs because like I said in fact no, you won't have seen that video. Basically I've started a new job and I do not have the headspace to kind of dedicate to these big books at the moment, so I'm cutting down on my reading in December. The end of my wrap up, which is coming out the next video, will talk about life changes in general, but basically I've gone for some shorter non-fictions that I think I'm really keen on, and I've abandoned a lot of the yearly TBR and I'm just going to kind of see what takes my fancy. But one that I'm hoping to get to is The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat by Oliver Sacks. Oliver Sacks is a big writer in science and psychology, and this is, I believe, a collection of essays talking about various people who he worked with who had various different kind of psychological differences. And The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, I believe, is prosopagnosia, which is where you really struggle to recognize people's faces. It's kind of iconic in science writing, and so is Oliver Sacks, and I don't believe I've ever actually read any of his books, so I think this will be really good to get to. It's quite short. I believe it can be taken in chunks a little bit more, and it would be really nice to finally get to it because it's been on my shelf for probably about 2 years now. One that literally just came in and I'm so excited about it that I definitely just want to pick it up as soon as I can is Fabulosa, The Story of Pirelli, Britain's Secret Gay Language by Paul Baker. I was listening to a podcast recently, I believe it's called The Illusionist, and they had an episode on Pirelli, which was an underground language that the gay community used to kind of talk to each other without straight people necessarily knowing what they were saying. And it was sort of this identifier around, I believe, in the 60s and 70s. And this is a book that is about the story of Pirelli, like how did it form, how did it die out, how did it become more mainstream, and just generally what did it represent for people within those communities. Paul Baker was on the podcast that I was just talking about, and they were talking about his book, and as soon as I kind of listened to it, it was like a 20-30 minute podcast. I was like, right, I have to get this book and I have to read it as soon as I can. So this is it here, and I'm definitely going to be trying to get to it in the month of December. Another non-fiction that I'm going to hopefully try and get to is Traces by Patricia Wiltshire. This is the memoir of a leading forensic scientist and criminal investigator. I really like medical memoirs, and this is somebody who works with dead bodies to help solve crimes, and I think it's just going to be generally quite interesting. It's also again quite short, and I've heard good things about it, so I'm chucking it in there because this is a little bit more of a comfort read, both in terms of subject matter and also just like length for me, so I think I'm more likely to be able to actually get it finished in the month of December. Talking fiction now, I am going to hopefully try and get to Man Tiger by Eka Kurniawan. This is a translated fiction from Indonesia. It was on my translated fiction TBR, so I'm still determined to try and get to it. And the the myth in kind of Indonesian culture is that there are people like tiger spirits in them, I believe. I hope I kind of explained that right. And this is a translated story that is about two families kind of clashing in a very violent way, and one of them being somebody who has this kind of tiger spirit within them. I think it looks really interesting. I love the cover and I'm keen to try and jump in with it. Talking about audiobooks more specifically, I do actually have an audiobook, The Familiars by Tracy Halls. This is a kind of classic gothic thriller, and it's set in the 1600s, and it's about a woman who approaches this kind of witch type, midwifey type character about trying to have a baby, and then it's kind of sort of the mystery that she gets embroiled in, and the sort of the witchcraft and superstition. I think it's going to be really, really interesting. I like witchcraft stories. I read a book recently on like the history of witchcraft from a non-fiction perspective, and I haven't picked up like a gothic thriller in a little while, so I think this will be a really good read, and it'd be nice to read a historical fiction that's set a little bit further back. A lot of my historical fiction reading tends to be Victorian, so I do enjoy dipping into some later stuff, or earlier stuff more accurately, from time to time. And I have the audiobook, so I think it'll be a great one. Another audiobook I want to try and get to is Adult Rites by Octavia E. Butler. This is book 2 of her Exogenesis trilogy, and this is like a really fun sci-fi about where the world has basically kind of all gone to hell, and these aliens came and sort of saved a collection of the human race and kind of kept them in a cryogenic state, and then is now trying to reintroduce them back into Earth, and it's about the trade-off that they're going to do. So you have some really fun conversations of like the survivalists of trying to integrate back onto a planet that has definitely changed, but also you then get to see all the kind of like cool world building with these aliens. I really loved book 1. I thought it was so much fun, and I'm super psyched to jump back in with the trilogy. I might even try and finish off the entire trilogy this year, but I'm definitely going to get to book 2. Bearing in mind that things are a little bit hectic with my new work situation, I've got 2 kind of slightly lighter books in there as well that I do think I'm going to try and prioritise. One of them is The Dreamers by Karen Wallace Thompson, I believe. This is a YA book about people who start to fall into kind of comas or sleeps and then don't wake back up. I read her book The Age of Miracles recently, which was like a dystopian, a post-apocalyptic book about the day lengthening and like the Earth's rotation slowing down, and I really enjoyed that one, and I think she's quite a light YA writing style, so I'm quite keen to jump in with another one of hers. And again, I think this will be really good in my lunch breaks at work when I don't necessarily want to focus on anything too heavy duty, but I am enjoying sitting and reading. And on a similar note, I want to get to Take a Hint, Dani Brown by Talia Hibbert, which is book 2 in one of her like romance series, although it's following the sister of the first main character. I can't remember what tropes it is. I don't care. It looks like it's a really fun romance, and I'm just going to use this as an excuse to try and jump in with it because I really enjoyed Get a Life, Chloe Brown. So it doesn't matter what tropes this is going to be playing with. I think I'm gonna have a good time. And I believe that that is all the books that I'm planning to try and get to in the month of December. I'm being realistic with my reading in the sense that I think if I get to even half of these, I'll be doing quite well. I fully expect there to be a few more of the Animorphs books in there, which is like a middle grade series that I'm kind of slowly making my way through, just because work is a little bit more hectic at the moment. New job, very, very exciting, excellent fun. But I'm hoping with some of the downtime I have over Christmas itself, I'll be able to get through some of these slightly bigger books or slightly more heavy duty books. And yeah, I think this will be a fun way to end the year. So do you have your end of year TBR out yet? Are there certain books that you're determined to try and get to before the year finishes? Let me know everything in the comments down below. Have a wonderful reading week, and I'll chat to you soon. Bye.